Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Outer Realm here on United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM from beautiful New Orleans. We're fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey since the very beginning. So thank you, Folgers. We appreciate you so very much. Also, big thank you to Justice Snicker, a.k.a. Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, for his contribution of his time, his music, and his voice for the intro that you just heard. He is an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found on all of your favorite music streaming platforms. Also, big thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind the banners and logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the horror genre, but can do some fantastic commission pieces, books, novels, things of that nature. So check him out. Tonight, we welcome for the very first time Reverend John Polk. This is part one of at least a three-part show series. He is the go-to person for UFO, paranormal, and Vortex tours in Sedona. Tonight, he's going to be discussing UFOs in Sedona. He has sent over some really cool photos and a video to share with us. And he's going to be touching on two of his books, which are, I guess we can say, out of this world. So in order to participate in the show tonight, as you guys know, we've got 7 chat rooms out of 8 simultaneous different locations that we are airing. Roku does not have a chat room. So again, guys, super highway coming down to one lane. We will try to get to everyone, and we do have to somewhat go in order and keep up with our guests, so to speak. So, hello, Winnie. I can't get used to that picture. I'm just saying. Hello, Dolly. I hope you are feeling better, Dolly. It's always nice to see you here for sure. And where's Z-Sun? Where are you? Where are you? Here we go. And here you are. Awesome. Hello. So again, remember, 7 chat rooms, 8 simultaneous destinations, no chat room on Roku. Be patient. You know, I try very hard to get to everybody. Hello, Doreen. Hello, hello. Hello. And our guest of honor is here after the amazing intro I just gave you. Hello.
Hey, Michelle. Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, my gosh. I'm really looking forward to it. Such a pleasure to have you on. I know everybody has been hyping it up, too. So it's been very exciting. Perused the website and thought, oh, my gosh, where are we going to start with everything? I'm glad we have at least a 3-part booking with you, because I have a feeling it's one of those things that just can just keep going, isn't it? It never changes.
Yeah, oh man, I could give you volumes of material for months and months.
Wow.
Videos. I have audio recordings of aliens. I absolutely do. They've been researched by Stanford University through Tom Dongo, who helped make Bradshaw Ranch famous, he's a personal friend of mine.
Right.
Lives about 25 minutes from here.
Right.
I have Bradshaw Ranch Stargate footage that you can see on Beyond Skinwalker on the History Channel.
Right. Yeah.
Beyond Skinwalker, season 1, episode 1, and season 1, episode 5 is part 2. And
wow.
Chronicles the history and the geographical and ethereal anomalies that are taking place out there also. But I have all that footage. I have some of the best footage that I've ever seen, and it's mine.
Isn't that beautiful? Mine. Screw you all.
Yes.
I know. I just like the you know. I know, right? How comes evil laugh? Why don't we start off with humble beginnings just so people can get to know you? I mean, one doesn't just fall into, this amazing position that you have. And I don't even like to say job because it's a passion. I think it's just like when you love doing something so much, it just becomes a part of who you are. It's not something that you dread having to go out and do every day. So why don't you just take it from here? I'll keep up, I promise.
Okay, so through a regression that I went through when I first moved to Sedona in 2017,
Mhm.
I had 20 plus professional clinical hypnotherapists, regression therapists try to work on me, and nobody could crack the code until I moved here to Sedona. And I meet this little old lady, real pretty, pencils in her eyebrows. She's the most powerful spiritual healer I ever met in my entire life.
Wow.
And she was able to regress me. And my mother was pregnant with me for 9 months plus 5 weeks.
Wow.
So over 10 months, and that's unheard of. They will induce the labor because it's a health issue for the fetus at that point. And then the same thing happened to my brother 2.5 years later.
Wow.
And what came out through the regression is that I'm just going to allege. So let me give my disclaimer.
Oh,
Right
no,
now.
you just go. Yeah.
Here's my disclaimer: is that a lot of material we're going to cover, like right now, I can't prove to anybody. I can't even
Right.
prove to myself.
Right.
As much really good footage as I have, in my mind, it doesn't really prove anything. But that being said, at least I have it. At least I
Right.
have something.
Right.
And I talk about Bible aliens, and I talk about multiple dimensions, string theory, quantum hologram matrix. And so a lot of what I'm going to tell you is based on theory. So, and that being said, so going back to getting regressed, her name is Thea Ivy. She still lives here in
Mhm.
Sedona. And the way that she explained it to me is that it's kind of like you go to an Airbnb and you go to the lockbox and you have to know the code to open the box to get the key. And that's what she did to me, to my subconscious. So literally, like, messing with the code on the top of my crown chakra till she
Right.
figured out the right code to open up the box and then get the key. And then the key opened up my subconscious. And then I'm laying on the table and I'm like, I've been through this for years. Nothing's working. Next thing you know, it starts to flow out of you. And it's hard to explain, but it's like you have two consciousnesses working at the
Right.
same time. So
Right.
you hear yourself talking, but it's you, but it's not you.
Right.
And so then your brain is thinking, wow, am I saying this stuff as it's pouring out of you? And what came
Right.
out is that supposedly, according to this regression, that the Anunnaki visited my mother when she was pregnant with me and altered my DNA or added to it or something. They
Right.
did something to it. And that's why I needed to neurologically cook for perhaps an extra 5 weeks to come to term with whatever they did to me.
Right. Right. That's interesting.
And then 2.5 years later, the same thing happened to my brother.
Right.
So where I got the spirituality, psychic abilities, spiritual healing, my brother, he got the brains and the bronze. So when he went to college, they had them take this aptitude test, and he scored higher than anybody in the 80-year history of the university.
Wow.
And then he was a champion weightlifter, being scouted by the Olympics when he was in high school.
Wow.
So I got the spirituality, he got the brains and the bronze, and I kind of think we were kind of like, test tube experiments.
Right. Right. Not a bad thing though, considering, because I mean it's a kind of a quick start to the evolutionary scale, right?
So I'm 5 years old, and I was seeing spirits just like most children do, and most parents are like, oh honey, it's your imaginary friend. But in my mind, maybe it is, but maybe there is something to it, because spirits literally will enter children's dolls, their
Yes.
stuffed animals, because they want the love. you know, and a lot of what we think are ghosts are actually extra dimensional, extraterrestrials that just don't have a physical form in this dimension. So anyway, I'm seeing things, and my mother, instead of her, you know, poo-pooing it away, she's like, oh, honey, how about this? Let's play a little game. Don't tell me what you saw. Let's draw it, or at least explain it to one another. So my mom's this prolific artist with oils and acrylics, and I'm using Crayola crayons.
Right.
And we were coming up with the same thing over and over. So to the point where mom groomed me since I was 5 years old. And then she started pushing psychic development books on me. So I'm 5 years old reading about how to develop my psychic abilities and tap into the Akashic record. I mean, how many 5-year-olds get that kind of head start in life as far as a life of spirituality?
Right.
And so that's where it all began.
Right. I love that. I love that. So you fast forward in time and you end up in Sedona.
Yes, I do. So I used to do entertainment, not for, but by Disney and Universal on and around their properties in Orlando, Florida for over 20 years. I was a singer, dancer, and DJ. And I did that for a very long time. And it was an incredible career. I loved it. But it ran its course. And then just my mother got remarried in Sedona like 8 years ago now.
Right.
8 years in May. And so that first brought me to Sedona. I'm thinking, I think 2015, something like that. Yeah. 2015, she got remarried. It was her dream to get remarried here. So that was my first introduction. So my brother and I, we fly in from Florida. We fly into Sky Harbor Airport in Phoenix. We rent a car and we drive north to Sedona, which is about 2 hours. And as we got further north, the cactuses got prettier, the mountains got prettier, and then you drive into the Red Rocks, the Crystal City, and it was like, wow, I'm from Florida. I've never seen anything like this in my entire life.
Right.
And then I knew, I'm like, I could actually live here. Had no clue at the time that I would actually move here.
Right. Right.
So a few years later, my aunt and uncle had a house here. And my uncle was going through health problems. He was staying with my mom in Tallahassee, Florida. And my aunt was going through breast cancer and was at a breast cancer clinic in Seattle, Washington. So my mom, my stepdad, and my Uncle John, my mom's brother, they came down to Orlando to visit me. And we're just sitting on the couch talking. And my Uncle John said, remember the house that I had in Sedona? I said, oh, yeah, definitely. He said, did you know it's been sitting empty for 6 months? I'm like, no, I had no idea. He said, I know you're trying to sell your house. So if you want, sell your house and then you can house sit for me. And I'm like,
twist my arm. Okay.
Well, I'm like, do you, pay utilities? He's like, no, your family. I'm going to give you a laundry list of stuff to do. Right. Just do it. And you can stay in the house. I just want somebody to take care of the house.
Sure.
And so what did I do? I sold my house, and fate would have it, a month later on September 11th of all dates, 2017, Hurricane Irma wrecked the old house, but it wasn't my house. I sold it. I cashed out.
Wow.
Good after 15
Somebody
years.
wanted you to get right where you are right now.
Unbelievable. And then I break up with my girlfriend after 7.5 years. That was very difficult to do because we were still very much in love with each other. Right. And then, I quit my very lucrative entertainment career, and I sold everything I could sell, and I gave away the rest. And I literally packed everything that I could possibly fit in my truck. I had not one stitch of furniture. It was all my decorations and clothes and electronics, all my sound systems and everything that I had.
Right.
And I literally drove from Florida across the country to Sedona. And all of a sudden I had a free house for 8 months, no bills.
Wow.
And because I was a DJ, karaoke guy, I had the full sound system, cordless microphones, speakers. You could interface computers through my soundboard and everything else. So I was the logical option to MC all the major UFO conferences. Right. So like within 1 month, I'm MCing, not even 1 month, but within a few weeks, I'm MCing UFO conferences in Sedona, and I'm meeting all these people and I'm inviting them over to the house. Right. And they're like, dude, you suck. Do you know how expensive it is to live here? And you get a free house for 8 months? Do you know how lucky that you are? And I'm like, yes.
I do.
Yes, thank you, God.
Abundance. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was taught very quickly when I first moved here, a lot of people come here and go bankrupt. I don't care how much money you have, how smart you think you are. A lot of people will come here with just kind of, intentions of making money off of this place, using spirituality as a crutch and a platform for whatever selfishness.
They don't go well together, do they?
And the locals know it. We know it. And I point out on my day tours all the time, that property has a curse on it. That property has a curse on it. I can't prove the curse thing. What was happening through the Homestead Act of 1862, the government was giving away all the Native Americans' land, not just in Sedona, but all through the Southwest and the Western United States to pull the population west. So you get anywhere from 100 to 160 acres free, right? And so the shamans, where they did their ceremonies and their rituals, were putting curses on the land to protect the spirit of the land. And so I was taught this when I first moved here, and I was taught, pray to Sedona. And Sedona is named after a woman. I pray to her every day. It works for me in my life. Her name is Sedona Arabella Miller Schnebley. Okay. Pray to her and ask permission to be here in the first place. Be thankful that you're even here in the first place. And just have, gratitude and graciousness. Venerate and revere her as the beautiful goddess that she is, and that you have this opportunity to even be here in the first place.
Right.
I'm like, you know what? You're right. When I heard that from people I'm just getting to know, it made perfect sense to me. And I do it, and I talk about it on my tours all the time. All the time. Yes.
You think, John, that I mean, people are automatically attracted, but do you think that just the spirit of the area just wants a certain type of individual there? Because it's not the first time I've heard that, people go bust and they head to Sedona, and with all of these, not just so much trying to make the $1 million in this incredible power spot location, but somehow they just want to become a part of it. But it doesn't work for everybody. Like, I'm a true believer that not everybody could follow on certain journeys. It's just not either your time or it's just not your purpose.
I agree with you completely. Yeah. So Sedona can chew you up and spit you out. That's for sure. And I've lived here twice. I have. And I moved here the first time, I had the free house, waltzed into all this convenient luck, but there is no such thing as convenient luck.
Right.
With the conferences and everything else, the free house. And then I had a house lined up and it fell through, and I ended up moving back to Florida when I was 49 and lived with my mother.
Oh, wow.
That was not the plan.
Right.
Trust you me. And then I ended up moving back to Sedona on total accident. So I had a girlfriend in Southern California. I was in Florida. My dad was going through a series of surgeries. The idea was to be there for Dad, and then eventually drive back across the country to be with her in Southern California and open up a UFO sighting company. Right. And then halfway, I'm like in Amarillo, Texas, in some dive hotel, and I get a text, I'm breaking up with you. And I'm like, I couldn't even believe it. It's like, what am I going to do now? But I promised my friend Suzanne Ross, who does the biggest conferences in town, and I've been her UFO guy since 2017 also. Right. She, if you're doing conferences, that's who you go through. She's the biggest player in town. Right. She's all powerful. Right. Like all the ancient aliens people, she gets them to be keynote speakers. Right. Very nice. But anyway, I promised her that I would MC part of her conference when she was doing an activation on the Red Rocks. So I'm in this hotel and I'm like, I can go back to Florida and make $100 or more an hour doing entertainment, or I can stick to my word and go help Suzanne. And so I did. Integrity. I did. I'm a man of my word, and and so I did. And then I was staying with some friends, and I'm heartbroken. My girlfriend broke up with me. And the whole conference went to the house I was staying in for like an after party after the conference. And everybody's looking at me like, John, she was 20 years younger than you were in the first place. You weren't supposed to to be with her.
Hello.
Yeah. Mikao,
Yeah. Right.
and I, and it made a lot of sense to me. They're like, John, you're supposed to be here. And so a month later, I'll never forget, it was on Easter Sunday, right, of 2019. This guy comes over. He's a psychic astrologer here in town named JP Anthony. And he said, hey, I'm going to use a pseudonym. I always call her Michelle. Not you, but yeah, Michelle.
That's okay.
Is looking for a new UFO tour guide. And I'm like, wow, well, how cool would that be? And I'm like, well, why don't you want it? He's like, I own art galleries. I don't have time to do it, but you need a job, right?
Right.
So yeah, the house that we had the party in, they were like, that room's available. If you want to rent it, just rent it. We're going to gouge you, but you can still rent it. And within 1 month, I became an employee of one of the biggest UFO sighting tour companies in the world. And then within 4 months, I became the lead tour guide for the entire company. And then that's when, the graciousness, the gratitude, thank you, I love you. I call her Mama Sedona. I feel like maybe in a past life, I was one of her 6 kids. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. But there's the story of how I landed here 3 times. Mom's wedding, the house for free, and then moved back completely on accident, thinking I'm going to live in Southern California.
If you're meant to be somewhere, the universe always finds a way to get you there. And if the road that you're on is too hard and it keeps making it harder, it's because you're supposed to switch gears. And when you switch gears and get in the right direction, all of a sudden things just seem to get easier, which is sort of like, okay, maybe I should have done that in the first place. So I love it. So, I mean, I know there's so many different things in Sedona. I mean, I've spoken to so many people who have been or who have lived there through the years, who have visited. But I'm very intrigued to start, of course, because of the UFOs. And because, let's face it, you've got CE5s has become this whole new movement. For me, it's always been telepathic. If I want a communication, I just go out because I'm an experiencer. I'm a contactee from the time I was a child. So it's not hard to make that connection. But now it seems to be this huge movement and people are just like, wait, we can do this? Yes. Yes, but they need to be taught how. And I believe also in starting off in places where it's a controlled and safe environment.
Yeah, I agree. So I am protected here.
Yes.
I honestly believe that. CE5, I learned a lot from Dr. Stephen Greer.
Right.
But I've kind of came up with my own modality that I do.
Okay.
And I do it every single day.
Mm-hmm.
What people don't realize is that just certain basic meditations, I'm a horrible insomniac. And I think that that's a good thing because I just lay in bed and I just pray and I meditate.
Beautiful.
I can't sleep. What else am I going to do?
Right.
And that's when, I communicate telepathically with them. As far-fetched as it sounds, I know it's real. And I have hundreds of witnesses that will go on record and talk about it.
Right.
I'm serious as a heart attack. I have that many witnesses that will put their neck out there, their career, and just say it's real. And that's why John gets all the major UFO conferences in one of the biggest hot spots in the entire world for UFO sightings. And I sent a picture to you earlier of the 7 chakras.
Which ones would you like me to show?
Let's start with the 7 chakras.
Okay, 1 second. Let me go in and pull that one out. So be patient. I've got all kinds of things coming up here.
I sent you a bunch of stuff.
I know. I love it. I just have to go in and find the one I'm supposed to have. Okay, hold on a second.
Well, just like humans have chakras, so does the earth.
Right.
And so the 7 chakras of Sedona go right over my house.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I'm going to put it over right now. While I put this up real quick, what is it about Sedona that makes it this power spot where everything. It's an area of what I like to call high strangeness, because it has literally everything. There's no real one thing specifically to pinpoint. It's just a melee of all sorts of grandeur.
Okay, so the Earth is a grid. Okay, and I researched. There's a term called an icosagon, which is a 20-sided polygon object at nodal points around the Earth.
Right.
Okay. And a lot of those nodal points, they merge here.
Right.
So Plato, the Greek philosopher, he authored 2 books, the Timaeus and the Critias, and he theorized about Atlantis, but he also theorized that the Earth was broken up into a grid, and the lines of the grid are called ley lines, spelled L-E-Y as opposed to L-A-Y.
Right.
And they're all around the world. Sedona's not special as far as that goes. But the Earth charges these lines. So they're either electric or magnetic. But where the electric and magnetic lines cross, you have electromagnetic energy. Right. And we are electromagnetic beings in that we think thoughts. It creates electrical impulses, which you can measure with an electroscope. And then the water in our body and the iron in our blood is magnetic. So you're an electromagnetic being in the middle of the highest concentration of electromagnetic vortexes in the world. So if you can pulse or face an electromagnetic field, you can make objects disappear and reappear. And that's basic Tesla technology that they were experimenting with back in 1953 during the Philadelphia experiment.
Right.
And so since there's more vortexes in Sedona than anywhere in the world. There's
really
7 major vortexes in Sedona that you can measure with a tri-field magnetometer.
Right.
Okay,
right.
so tri-field magnetometer, it measures 4 things. So electric energy, magnetic energy, electromagnetic energy, that's 3 things, and then microwaves. So it was a number of years ago, and I had a scientist who he was by himself and he wanted to go on tour. And I'm like, I don't typically just take one person. He's like, I have a tri-field magnetometer and I'm not buying this whole, chakras and vortexes, but as a scientist, I'm going to be able to prove that you're right or prove that you're wrong.
Beautiful.
So I'm like, let's do it. Let's just do it. Cause to be quite honest with you, I'm pretty confident I'm right.
Right.
But I've never had a scientist put me on the spot.
Right.
So we go to one of my favorite vortexes in Sedona. It's called Amitabha Buddha Stupa in Peace Park.
Right.
And it's a very powerful male vortex. Okay. And we go up to the stupa. And stupa is basically, it's the same concept as a steeple on a church. And it's built on top of the vortex, right? And that was done on purpose to harness that energy, right?
Yes.
And so we go up to the stupa. And his tri-field magnetometer, it starts to peak out. We walk away, it stops. We walk over to a life-size statue of Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, the Amitabha Buddha of infinite light. We get close to it, starts to peak out again. We walk away, it stops. And then we walk over to what I call the vortex tree. And the juniper trees, if they're in the middle of that swirling, spinning vortex energy, they will twist as they grow. And so if you're out on, if you're out hiking or whatever, you're curious where the energy is. I'm an empath, so I can feel it a mile away.
Right.
But if you're not sure, look for the trees. The trees will give it away. And so he said, as a scientist, I thought I was really going to, debunk you and really prove you wrong. But he said, you know what? You're right. And everywhere where I thought that there was vortex energy, I was right about it. And that was sweet vindication for me because I wasn't exactly sure, if this was a bunch of bull also,
right.
You know what I'm saying? But then on top of that, the vortexes, the mountains here, the Red Rock Mountains are full of quartz crystal. So quartz crystal very often has been used by spiritual healers for thousands upon thousands of years, right? And you know how you can use a small piece of crystal to power a quartz watch. Well, what if you have a mountain full of crystal?
Oh,
so, seriously.
Yes, absolutely.
And then you couple that with the fact that there is mineral-rich artesian mountain spring water that flows through aquifers and rivers, and it flows right under and through the vortex areas, and it ramps up the conductivity. So here's an extreme example, but throw a toaster into a bathtub, and that's kind of what would happen when you come here. So
Right.
when you're here, your brain processes oxygen more efficiently and effectively and releases carbon dioxide more efficiently and effectively. And what that does, the more oxygen that you have going to your brain, it floods the brain with what you call BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotropic factor. And the more BDNF that you have in your brain, it is the building blocks for the proteins that create the synapses in your brain, and then the microglia. So you just have more electrical connections in your brain while you live here.
Right.
But you got to understand it. You really do. You have to understand that that's what's happening. And so what I believe, and this is very interesting, there's grid lines all over the earth. You know, Sedona is not the only place, of course.
Correct.
But there's this grid line that goes all the way around the world. And let me tell you some of the sacred sites that are on it. Okay.
Right.
So, Mohenjo-Daro in Pakistan, Easter Island, the Giza pyramids on the Giza Plateau, Angkor Wat in Cambodia, in Iraq, which goes back to the Anunnaki and the Sumerians, right? Persepolis in Iran, Machu Picchu in Peru, Nazca in Peru, and Petra, Jordan, which was featured prominently in the Bible. This is all on a line, a grid line that crosses oceans and everything else.
Right. It's pretty fantastic when you think about it on that scale.
It's amazing, you know?
Yes.
And like I said, most of those, or not most of them, but a lot of them intersect here. And so what I've learned through my research and through doing the UFO tours is that very often the UFOs will travel down the grid lines, that they're somehow, and this is my theory, that they're able to pick up on the earth energy from the grid lines and from the vortexes. So very, very often we will see what people would think is Elon Musk's Starlink.
Yes.
But so you talk to a lot of the Native Americans here, and they'll tell you, we don't believe it. And I'm like, well, I have apps on my phone that will tell me when it's going to show up. And they'll say, man, we still don't believe it. And I'm like, well, why not? And they said, we've been seeing this for hundreds of years.
That's the thing. Even as a kid, right? We'd see things in the sky, and I'm aging myself a bit, but it was prior to satellites.
Well, and what people don't get is most satellites don't move. So let's say you have a cell tower. Guess what? It's pointing at a satellite. If that satellite moves, everybody's going to lose their cell phone service, their Wi-Fi, their internet, two-way radio communications for military, first end responders, police, everything. You know, so yes, some satellites do move. That's for sure. Most of them move from west to east. And I have a satellite app. So I actually had this satellite technician come on one of my tours years ago, and he went to all my competition and then me last, which I found interesting. And he said, John, you're the only one who got it right. You're the only one who got it right. And what he said is that satellites don't have lights on them. So the Earth is 25,000 miles around, okay? Satellites are between 100 and 200 miles away. So as long as you can see any amount of daylight, so dark and sunset are two different things, right? So when sunset occurs, you can still see satellites because the sun is still able to reflect off their exoskeleton that's metallic. But like let's say 10 minutes after dark, you can't see them anymore because they're too close to the Earth, and the satellites are in the black dark cone of the Earth. Now, certain satellites do have lights on them. For example, the International Space Station, because I can point that out to you. I can go, hey, it's going to cross in about 15 minutes.
Yeah, we can see it clearly. Yeah.
And my app is pretty accurate also. But also Hubble Space Telescope, Kepler Space Telescope. And the reason they have lights on them is because, let's say they're on the dark side of the planet and they need the technicians to work on it. They can't see it. Right? They can't see it unless it has lights on. But most satellites don't. They're solar powered. They're not going to use solar powered batteries to create a bright enough light to shine 100 to 200 miles down to the planet. And then I still have people use the term satellites. And I'm like, okay, well, if what we just saw was a satellite, how come we don't see all the other satellites that are not moving?
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot up there. Let's face it.
There's 36,000 or more.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
or
great. That's
more than that.
That's big odds for sure. You know.
And there's weather satellites, and they do a polar orbit.
Mhm.
In other words, pole to pole, because if they just go around the equator, they're not going to cover all the land masses. And
Right.
same thing with the spy satellites too, right?
Yeah.
They do polar orbits, north, south, south, north, whatever, to cover all the land masses. But
Right.
most satellites don't move. They
Right.
don't. Because like I said, you lose your communications.
Right.
That's the
Right.
whole purpose of having those satellites up there in the first place.
Right.
Is basically for
Communication.
global communications. And they
Right.
relay off of each other also.
Right.
So, you know, say a cell tower goes straight up, there's a satellite up there, and then it bounces to maybe the state next to you, which is 500 miles away, and then bounces to another one, and all within a nanosecond. Also, you know, if those satellites move, you lose all your signals. So I learned this from the satellite technician who was spying on me and my competition in Sedona, and it made me feel great. And he said, "You didn't get it completely right either, but
Right.
you're the only one who even got halfway close." And then he started explaining to me what I just explained to the audience.
Right.
And I thought I knew my stuff, and I guess I didn't know everything.
Right. Right. Well, I know it's always the way, but I mean that's the thing, right? It's a forever evolving. We're always learning, and that's what it's all about. You know, if we knew it all, then what kind of fun would it be? There'd be nothing left to learn. Just a reminder to everybody: not ignoring questions. We will get to them, but we have to sort of keep up with the topic of conversation, and then we'll definitely get to everybody. So here is a picture that you asked me to show.
Okay, so here's your 7 chakras. It starts, so the lower left, okay, is 7 canyons.
Okay.
And that's where Boynton Canyon is, and that's where the Blue Star Kachina Rock is also.
Okay.
And
Dead Man there. Okay.
Man's Pass in the lower left corner.
Right.
And then you go up through Thunder Mountain, and then you get to the heart chakra, which is ultimately in the middle, and that's right by my house. And this line goes over my house. So it goes past the heart chakra, which is at the airport Mesa, all the way out to Bell Rock, which is perhaps the second most hiked and visited vortex / trailhead in all of Sedona.
Wow.
And this plays into the grid line I was just explaining, you know, same kind of thing. So remember the Rendlesham Forest, that whole thing with James Penniston and John Burroughs?
Yeah.
So remember, it was Penniston, James Penniston or Jim Penniston, that put his hand on the craft, and he got downloaded with this like 30-page thing of binary code.
Yeah, crazy.
And so he goes to a code breaking savant, and it said something to the effect, continuous exploration for planetary advance, eyes of your eyes, something else. But then it comes up with 7 latitude, longitude coordinates around the world. Okay. Right. One of them was in Mount Tai in China. One was in Nazca. One was the 3 pyramids on the Giza Plateau. One of them was somewhere where the Maya were in Mesoamerica. I'm forgetting some of the others. But one of those 7 coordinates was here in Sedona.
Wow.
That's the 7 cities of light.
Wow. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. And so I don't know if you know who Andrew Collins is.
Yes, the name's familiar. Yes.
On Ancient Aliens.
Yes.
He's, I think, an archaeologist and anthropologist, something like that. He's a world traveler, but he was here a couple years ago through a Suzanne Ross conference. And one of the excursions was to go, and he had this like handheld satellite GPS tracker, something like that, right? Handheld. Right. And the whole point was to go to those exact coordinates.
Right.
So we go down this trailhead, and then we get off the trailhead, and we're hiking down this wash. Right. In other words, you know, we're melted snow or water, but it was dry, whatever. We hiked that for about a mile. Right. And it's pretty arduous because it's all rocks and ankle breaking rocks. And, you know, you got to be careful. Took us, I don't know, 45 minutes. And then all of a sudden he's like, we're there. And so we get out of the wash, and about 10 feet away is this flat area where there's no vegetation. So there's vegetation absolutely everywhere, except on that spot. You could tell that ceremony had been done there. Right. And so we look up from where we were sitting, and we see a red rock mountain that looked identical to a pyramid. if you saw it, you would have said, wow, it looks like a pyramid. And then we look off to another direction and we see what we believe to be a Puerta de Ayamarca. I don't know if you've ever heard of that in Peru. What it means is gateway of the gods, where you can see a square.
Yes, I know it.
Bedrock.
Yes,
and
I know it.
And if you know how to traverse your body, mind, spirit, but also the symbiotic engine in your trans-dimensional space-time vehicle, you can traverse your space-time vehicle through rock, through water, through any medium, period.
That's right. Like it was never meant to open. That was just a total transitional thing.
It was unbelievable.
Yes.
And so Andrew Collins, I'm sitting next to him, and Suzanne Ross gave me a camera. She's like, I want you to come, but I want you to film him the entire time.
Right.
It's everything he says. I'm like, deal. So he's sitting next to me, and there's probably 20 or 30 of us. And we're sitting there, and he's going through this guided meditation, which started with a diamond dodecahedron in your heart. Okay. And this heart dodecahedron made of diamond and crystal is flying around to these 7 nodal points around the planet. And then the last one was coming from Mesoamerica, flying over Mesoamerica, through Mexico, through New Mexico, into Sedona. And it was like this visual kind of guided meditation, and it was so good.
Right.
And he's like, did you get all that? And I'm like, I got every word of it. But wasn't that cool? But the whole point is that the Rendlesham Force and James Penniston, what he believes is that craft were actually time travelers from like 3,000 years in our future. That's what he believes.
Right.
Can't prove it, but whatever.
Right, right.
But what they did prove is that binary code mapped out these coordinates, and one of them was Sedona.
Which is like amazing.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
It's phenomenal.
That was awesome.
Right. I know, it's kind of like, where do we go now? It's just like, gods, man. So, okay. So we know it's a power spot without a doubt. And I mean, you guys see stuff all the time. You've sent some amazing photos. There's so many. There's part of me that wants to jump over to book 1, book 2. This, like, there's part of me that just wants to jump all over the place. I'm trying to stay really focused with it. But where do you see like most of these sightings? Like people come to you and say, "Okay, John, we want to come in on one of your tours. Walk us through what that's like," because I want people to consider this, coming up, because hey, spring's gonna be right around the corner, and I may just do it myself. So,
well, you come down, Michelle. You bring the whole cast and crew. I'll hook you all up for free.
Oh, thank you.
But what I do is I invite people to come to my home. I invite them to my home, whether I know them or not. Most of the time, I don't know who they are, although I do get a ton of repeat customers.
Right.
And I have a money back guarantee. If you don't see anything, you don't pay me. Nobody has ever gotten out of paying me, ever.
Right.
And they'll tell you they saw something, instead of just a dot slowly going across the sky.
Right.
5 full minutes. And that's when people argue that it could be a satellite. But I'm like, I want you to see something definitive, Right. But first, what I do is I show them footage. So if we do it here at my house, I'll do it on my 70-inch big screen.
Right.
And I do it most time. I'm not even doing it here. I'm doing it remotely at somebody's Airbnb or up at the airport or working with my competitors. Because we all got huge egos, but we realized years ago, buried egos, the groups just keep getting bigger and bigger. Let's work together.
Right.
To do these tours, because I only have 11 goggles. They're like $4,000 a piece. So that sounds like a lot. What if you have 50 people?
Right.
11 goggles. It's not even appropriate to charge people and force 3 or 4 people to share one pair. But anyway, I'll show them the footage. If I'm not at home, I'll take my tablet, which I love my tablet because I can do any kind of presentation I want. I can do a 3-minute presentation. I can do a 3-hour presentation through what I have on my tablet.
Wow.
I'll show them the footage, play the alien audio, which I can do on this show. If you want me to do it, I'd be happy to do it.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And then what I do, I just wait till it gets dark enough. So this time of year, we're mountain time, and it's weird, but half the time Sedona and Arizona on a whole is mountain time. The other half is Pacific time. So I think it's March 8th, we spring forward. And when we spring forward, our time stays the same.
Right.
But whatever. But this time of year, mountain time, Sedona, we start around 6:15. So I'll invite people either over to my house around 5:30, 5:45, or I'll go to wherever they're staying, or just whatever, whatever I'm going to do. I like to be there early. And especially if I've never done it in a certain location, I like to get there, maybe even an hour or more early, and just pray and meditate. I don't want anybody around me. I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to send it to them and let them know where I am.
You're the transmitter.
Yes. I'm like a beacon, like at an airport or something. But that's what I like to do. And I was the UFO guy in Mount Shasta 2 summers ago.
There's a whole other show, isn't there?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, that's a whole other show. We're going to do that one.
I got there 2 days early.
Yeah.
Just out of respect for the mountain.
Right.
Out of respect for the spirit there. The Lemurians that live in Shasta. Oh. And that's, yes, you're right. That's a whole other show.
Oh, we're going to do it.
but I did my CE5 for days. I did. Yeah, I did my CE5 for days. Had camera crews out there and the whole bit. I love to put myself on the spot.
Right.
Pressure. I eat with my cornflakes in the morning.
Right.
I used to sing in front of thousands of people.
Right.
So you have to know that you're good at what you do.
Right.
Be cocky. Don't be arrogant.
That's a difference. Yeah.
Right. But know that you're going to deliver.
Right.
And so imagine you got 50 people and you got a bunch of skeptics out there. They're looking for something spectacular. They are. And you can't blame them for wanting to see something spectacular. I want them to see something spectacular. Right. I love to put myself on the spot, and I stick my neck out there all the time and do it. And I'm always successful, weather permitting. I will say that. Weather or chemtrail permitting, but yes.
Right. Which would make, complete sense.
Yeah.
So people basically have these phenomenal experiences. You sent over some pictures. Do you want me to show them? And you're welcome to show. As far as your recording goes, you've got complete control over the board if you want as well, just with that little present button at the bottom of the screen there for yourself. You see it right beside?
No.
Yeah, there's a little, but way at the bottom of the screen, underneath in the square, you'll see it'll say where it says leave studio, just go to the left and it says a button. There's a button that says
yes.
present. Yes. You can click that and you have control, so you don't have to give up all your stuff. but
so I'm very computer illiterate. Like
okay. So
computers break around me very often. Like they don't work properly.
Okay.
But that being said, I sent you some stuff. But what kind of frustrated me earlier is that some of the best stuff, it would not go through. And I had this problem. I had this problem with my former employer, Michelle, where I'd be like sitting right next to her, and she's like, "Would you please send me that footage?" And I'm like, "Michelle, I'm doing it right in front of you. I've done it 5 times. Now the video before went through. The video after that went through.
Right.
Why is this one not going through?"
Maybe it's too big. I use WeTransfer for a lot of stuff because
I could potentially do this. Ooh. I don't know if that would work or not.
Yeah, you could try for sure. You can.
All right. Okay, let's just take a look here. Look at that.
Oh, that's the video. I have that video. You did send it to me.
Whoa, everybody look. Oh my God, did you see that?
Watch this.
Holy crap, it was like,
oh, look at dimmed. Look, baby.
Oh my gosh. I have
weird.
Yeah, I have that video. It did come through.
And so you'll see this concentric circle kind of motif repeat itself over and over. And what I believe is that, and also how it's blurry, it should be blurry. And the reason is because the anti-gravity envelopes or gravity waves or whatever they're using, yeah. Okay. It's not propulsion. It's some kind of physics, right? Where when you bend space-time, it should blur the picture. It
Right.
should blur the image. So if you see something that's too perfect, it's probably been photoshopped, especially if you found it online. But
Right.
so that free house I had, here's the quick story. I'm in the house and I'm by myself, and it's like 4 a.m. or something. And something tells me to go outside. And whenever that hits me, I'd listen, right? So I put on clothes and I go outside. And that was right over the house. And
Right.
that's with a basic iPhone 7S, 2017. So it's not like I was using some kind of fancy digital photography.
Right.
And that was right over the house. And I'm like, wow. And it just totally wanted me and allowed me to take pictures of it.
That's
Yeah, things like that happen to me absolutely all the time, which I love.
That's crazy. I'd like to try to play that video if it'll allow me. It would not
Yeah.
let me download it to the screen at all, actually.
Isn't that funny? Electronics. I'm not going to even complete the sentence, but
Yeah, I don't even know if we won't be able to hear it, but I know we'll be able to play it. So here we go, just so people can see it. Okay.
And notice the concentric circles again, and the blurred, lines on the outside of whatever that was, and it vanished.
Oh, there it goes. Yeah.
So it's very similar, and that was okay. So get this: that was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the other picture that you just showed,
Yeah.
was here in Sedona, but it's the same kind of thing with the concentric circles. Not the spiral concentric circles. And then
Right.
the outer edge
Right
of the
here.
circle is blurred.
Yeah, I love how it spins. I mean, look at this thing go.
So a friend of mine was telling me that she believes that's what you call a sunfish. And so where we were in the Sandia Mountains, close to Los Alamos base. Imagine that in
Right.
New Mexico, outside of Albuquerque.
Right.
And we're doing a UFO watch. And I captured that video with the same iPhone 7S, which
Right.
is like dinosaur technology anymore.
It is now. I know. I've got one. I
And
know.
it was such a trip, Michelle. So it was weird. It was like a kid like looking over the edge of a couch and then hiding behind it again. And that's what this UFO was doing. If you can picture that, kind of hiding behind the mountain,
Right.
popping up over, hiding behind the mountain, popping up over. And so I told my girlfriend, I'm like, I'm going to just sit here. I'm going to ignore everything else. I'm going to have my phone recording the entire time
Right.
until I capture that thing again.
Right.
So, because I was trying to catch it on video and I wasn't able to. And so I just kept praying, meditating, asked
Right.
permission. Oh, here's a good one. Ask permission to see them
Yes. Yes.
and invite them in.
Mhm.
So when I first moved here, I would say, I know how to call them in. I was kind of just being kind of pig-headed and arrogant.
Right.
And my buddies were like, well, guess what? We can too. But how
Right.
about this? Let's frame it like this. Nobody wants to be told what to do. Think
Right.
about it. You're telling them what to do. I'm calling you in.
Right.
Calling you in, Michelle, so I make $100 a head. Well,
Right.
that's pretty arrogant and pretentious. So my buddy was like,
Right.
how about this? Yeah. You can toot your own horn all you want. But how about try and be a little humble here and
Right.
go, why don't we ask permission?
Right.
You'd like to think we're working with ascended masters here, right?
Right.
Loving and benevolent ascended masters.
Right.
And how about invite them in? Ask permission to see them in the first place. And when I did, and I'm like, it immediately clicked. I'm like, you know what? You're right. You're right. I'm coming in here all cocky and I got my attitude is completely wrong,
Right.
And when I started to do what my buddy explained to me, it worked so much better.
Right.
And it was
Right.
working before,
Right. Now it's
Yeah.
just like supercharged.
It was working.
Has anybody ever asked you? Because of course now with disclosure and everything else, and we know there's a lot of black ops stuff going
Yes.
on out there. Do you ever get approached and how do you know for sure if it's one of ours or something otherworldly? How do you get around all of that?
That's a very common question. So then I start posing questions to them. So
Okay.
I say, is our government or black ops military, whoever, are they experimenting and retro engineering, back engineering potentially alien technology in these crafts.
Right.
And pretty much every time somebody
Well,
will
even
say,
drones now are like the size of freaking cars.
yeah, but almost every
Right?
time somebody will say, well, yes. And then
Yes.
I'll say, okay, well, are they trying to be secretive about it? And almost every time they'll say yes. And I'm like, well, if they're trying to be secretive about it, why are they flying over Sedona when they know I'm recording them?
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? I mean,
Right.
if they're trying to be secretive, why are they flying over Sedona where I'm not the only one recording stuff?
False
either?
flag, maybe.
Or it could be that they don't even care anymore.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
rule that out. I wouldn't rule that out either.
Yeah,
So
I agree with you.
if I pointed out something that was military, I'm positive I have. But in the end, here's my built-in safety net. It's unidentified. You know, your guess is as good as mine. I'm not up there flying around. I'm not. But here's something that I like to do. It doesn't always work, but it usually does.
Right.
I ask them to do things while they're flying.
Right.
Okay. So the three main things: can you power up? And that means can you pulse?
Right.
Right? Can you just boom? And it's obvious when it happens.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Can you power up? Can you vanish? All right.
Mm-hmm.
And or can you change direction?
Mm-hmm.
So when any one of those things happens, I'm like, well, guess what? One, a satellite, you know, could have been the military, could have been, but you know, are they flying over?
There'd have to be somebody telepathically, you know.
Yeah, and
connected.
I actually have a video of me doing that. I have tons of videos of me doing that. This is it, and this might be hard to see. Do you want me to show it to you?
Yeah, you can show it for sure. Show it, send it, whatever you'd like.
Ooh, do you see that?
All right, let me do
this
again.
Ooh,
Well, that's on your website, right?
it did that on purpose for us.
Did you see how it got real bright and then dimmed?
Wow.
Right.
Powered up.
Do you want me? Can I play this off your website?
That's not on my website.
Oh, that one's not. Okay.
So this is really messed up. So my web designer, she is a good friend of mine, and she's an experiencer, that's for sure.
Right.
And she's sitting here with me for months. And you know, one day she's like, "How come I put videos on people's websites every day, and I can't put any on yours?" And I'm like, I don't want to, you know, start speculating, but I know it's being done on purpose. And so, you know, a lot of things I will try to send to people won't go through. Anything over 30 seconds is not, any video over 30 seconds. It's not allowing me to send it to you or to anybody else. So very, very, very frustrating to me.
Right.
But can't get frustrated. That doesn't help it.
No. Love and light. Love and light.
Yes.
Love and light. I know. Stay sane. I know. I think it's super interesting. Why do you think there's such a huge interest in this all of a sudden? I mean, countries all over the world have disclosed, like years and years ago. Some countries like Brazil and like France have always been pretty open with their people for the most part. Not like you get to know about everything, but at least you get to know about some things. You know, I know with Canada, Paul Hillier, you know, former defense minister, who, you know, passed away, but he came right out and said, blah, 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 blah. This is a thing. Why do you think now, you know, the people are interested? Because the United States doesn't want to disclose.
You know, they've been drip feeding it to us through movies and everything else for, you know, since you and I were kids, basically. More predicated on fear also. And I don't really, that doesn't vibe with me at all.
Since Roswell, especially. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is very interesting. I'm not going to use names here, but there's a number of researchers who came out and wrote books about Roswell and now will say that it's a hoax. You know, it's like, who is leaning on you to make you change your narrative after you received plenty of money off your book royalties and now you're changing your story? And then so the congressional hearings with Grush, the operative, like the Black Ops operative for the Air Force.
Yes.
And then there
Right.
was the pilot, squadron leader Graves, and Fravor. These three men, really, they're my heroes.
Right.
I mean, they're my heroes because I've been talking
Right.
about this stuff for years. Finally, I have retired Air Force guys who've been threatened, right, to come clean and just tell the truth, And then Grush, who was the first one to come out and use the term biologics and things like that, crash retrievals,
Right.
retroengineering, that he said he's even seen the craft, and then remember he was saying, I'll tell you about it in a skiff off camera, because they were slamming him with all these pointed questions, which were good.
Right.
I think they grilled him pretty good, and I think he did a fabulous job. So he's my hero. All three of those men are my hero. But they signed whatever, that if they're lying or caught lying in any way, they go to prison. So they had everything to lose and nothing to gain. And Grush especially, he was the first one to come out, but he also assembled a team of attorneys before he even did this, And I'm like, that was smart. I'm pretty sure that was the very obviously smart thing to do. But these three men are, they're under the microscope more than ever before. And, I believe everything they said. Are they sensationalizing? Are they exaggerating? I really don't think so. But I don't know either, but that's my personal opinion. I love these guys, but so the country of India, right? That 1.3 billion people, about 1 billion of them are Hindus. Well, they believe that Shiva and Vishnu and Krishna, who are actually the same deity, were star beings.
Exactly.
They had blue skin.
Exactly.
They flew around in vimanas.
Right.
And
but a lot of the ancient people believed that their gods were indeed, star people. The Gnostics spoke of the same thing. Just look at all over out of place artifacts all over ancient temples and petroglyphs. And I mean, come on, there's a lot more to that than,
I mean, come on, man.
Yeah. Yeah. What John said.
That's too funny. But to your point, so, all right, so let's see. A rocket scientist named Joseph Blumrich, he was studying the Bible to see if Ezekiel's chariot was something technological or not. So he went into it thinking, it's probably just some kind of metaphor, just the only way that they could describe the wheels within the wheels. So he started studying it as a rocket scientist, and he actually based the construction of the Mariner projects, that were space capsules, based on that research from the Bible, And the name of his book was The Spaceships of Ezekiel.
Right.
And so Vishnu or Krishna, he rode on a Garuda, which was this big bird that's wings were on fire. All right. Well, what else could that be? And also the Vimanas. Buddha was known to fly in his stupa up to the heavens to commune with the other gods.
Let's talk about Enoch.
Yeah, Enoch, the book of Enoch, which was part of the Pseudepigrapha, which was taken out of the canon of the Bible. And only the Ethiopians are the ones that keep it in their version of the Bible.
Right.
I was talking about this the other night on another podcast. There are over 50 different versions and interpretations of the King James Bible in the first place. So you got to figure every one of them has some wrong information in it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that's another show in itself too.
Oh, it is. It absolutely is. It's vast. It's vast. And you go back to even Da Vinci, who disappeared.
Oh yeah,
for 2 weeks, came back brilliant, more than usual. But he came back with all this knowledge, and I mean, there's a lot to it. There's so much to it, but it does pave the way, for those of us who want to do the research and keep open-minded, that you will find the information if you look. Dolly says non-disclosure agreements prevent a person from saying anything about specifics if the non-disclosure agreement all-encompassing. So if it's all-encompassing, they can go to federal prison or in case of espionage are executed. And it's not the first time I've heard that. Our producer, Joe Montaldo, who owns the network, had an experience on the Nimitz when something landed on the ship. And he was just like
Believe it? Yeah. Wow.
yeah. And, I know he actually talked about it on this show. And then because it had expired, the NDA. And after that, they made him resign. So you have to go out and get that episode, and he talks about it because the Nimitz has been involved in a couple of different UFO, sightings, or shall we say situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like yourself, I study this stuff. Nothing interests me more. And I believe that it's part of my mission in this lifetime on this planet to do as many UFO tours as possible,
right,
to change people's lives.
Right.
That's the, whether I'm doing spiritual healings on the Red Rocks, ghost tours where Sedona's buried, or UFO tours at night. The most important thing, I really want to rattle people a little bit. I want them to just never be able to forget about it, leave an indelible mark upon themselves that they will talk about forever. And that's why, to me, this is the most important and critical topic and issue for the entire planet.
Right.
By far.
Right.
There's so much positivity that can come out of it if it's released in the right way by the right people instead of being used for control.
Well, the control is by instilling fear. Now, I think crafts are one thing. I mean, I've been seeing crafts for as long as I can remember as a little kid, But what about extraterrestrials or terrestrials? Because I believe there's just as many of them already here that were here long before us. People always hear me say, we're not the first kick at the can, So we're not we're just the kids who can't get along in the sandbox. But meanwhile, there have been a lot of other cultures here long before us. There's evidence of it everywhere. So tell us about that, because I'm really, interested. I'm going to put up 1 second. You want to tell us a story? Because I do want to show your book cover, The Blue Beings, which was based. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful.
Absolutely. And it's really an absolute travesty what has happened with that story. Right. And I'm not going to use specific names, but there's a group out there called MUFON, where there was 35 investigators at that conference, and every one of them lied about it. They all knew it. This story should have gone viral years ago. I was there. Yeah, I was there. I'm still in contact with about 8 of the witnesses, and a number of the witnesses are just afraid. Now, I can respect that.
Right.
But as a MUFON investigator, you owe it to the world to be honest about this, that this happened. Yes. So it was August 29th of 2015. And I was the opening speaker at a conference in Portland, Maine, called Experiencers Speak.
Right.
So it was all experiencers. And I was the very opening speaker. And I'd never spoken at a conference before where I had sang and danced in front of thousands of people. I was never nervous, but I was just shaking in my boots.
Right.
And the conference started an hour late. So now I'm even more nervous.
Right.
And I have a bunch of papers and I'm fumbling through my papers and I really embarrassed myself. But I did a good presentation.
Right.
And what I did is I had all the experiencers hold hands and go into a guided meditation.
Right.
And I said, something's going to happen this weekend. There's too many experiencers here for nothing to happen. So how about let's ask permission to see them and let's invite them in, whether we see a ship or we see some beings or whatever. And Travis Walton, who is perhaps the most famous abductee in world history. Okay. He lives in Arizona. It happened in Arizona, and he was the keynote speaker.
Wow.
So it's the very last day of the conference. Nothing really has happened at all. And the only person left to speak is Travis. So I'm sitting right next to the double doors in the back of the room. And then right as it's about to begin, these 4 beings, 2 with blue skin, walk in and walk up to me. Out of everybody there, they walk up to me, and it's too weird, Michelle. They had money in their hands and they're holding it like this. Who holds money like them flat on their palms in their hands like this and says, "Are you the one we pay to see Travis?" And I'm like, no. Let me go find Audrey Hewen. So it was her conference.
Mm-hmm.
Been doing them for years, Experience or Speak. And I find her twin sister, Debbie, who in turn finds her twin sister, Audrey. And Audrey's trying to sort out the money and everything. And she noticed that 2 of them had blue skin also. Okay. And not to use other names, but we were on a number of different podcasts, including Fade to Church, or Fade to Church, Jimmy Black's.
Fade to Black.
We had a joke
Got
about
it. There's a plug.
Fade to Church with Jimmy Black.
Right.
Fade to Black with Jimmy Church.
Right.
Yeah,
Great
but anyway, so they walk in and they finally find Audrey, or her sister brings her to Audrey, and Audrey pulls them into the light because she couldn't see because they dim the lights because we're about to watch his new DVD. And she notices that 2 of them had blue skin. And they weren't sure what to do with the money. They just knew that it was important, that they had to use the money to be able to get in. And they didn't even have enough money. And at that point, Audrey's like, just give me the money and go sit down. They walk up to Travis, and Travis will not talk about this. And I've been talking about this for years, but I respect Travis for not talking about it because back in the 70s, he had death threats. He had children, I mean, I don't blame him. However, he's sitting on a treasure trove of disclosure with this. But I respect the man for not saying anything. Right. But they went up and started talking to him too. And this was right in front of Audrey. And then, okay, so they talked to Travis briefly, but he's about to speak. So they come and sit down right in front of me. They could have sat anywhere in the whole auditorium. They sit in front of me. And Travis did his presentation, which was brilliant. And then he showed his new DVD entitled Travis with some subtitle under it. And he was saying how he did not like Fire in the Sky, that they took a lot of creative liberties in Hollywood. And anyway, but he liked he liked his new DVD better. So we watched all that. And then he did a Q&A for maybe 45 minutes. And he's just brilliant speaker. I mean, he's one of the best out there. And then as soon as the conference was over, they all walk up to me and start talking to me, which blew my freaking mind. And then all of a sudden, a crowd starts to form around us. And one of the 4 beings did not have blue skin. This is very trippy weird. Do you know who Jason Martell is by any chance? Who's on Ancient Aliens a lot?
Yes.
He looked just like Jason Martell.
That'd be weird.
Yeah, except he had big black eyes. He had no color in his eyes whatsoever. And so I'm talking to this blue being, right? And I'm trying to sell him my Yahweh, the Biblical God is an Alien book. And imagine you're talking to somebody that looks perfectly human, but he had this ball cap on that was curiously low, pulled over his eyebrows crown so you could barely see his face. It's kind of curious. And then this is the trippiest thing ever, where I'm in my mind going, oh my gosh, this guy has blue skin. He has blue skin. And right at that time, the one that looks like Jason Martell walks around to the front of my table where I was selling my books. Right. And he looks at me, he looks in my eyes, and I swear he had to have done the Jedi mind trick on me. And he starts going, the Anunnaki, the Anunnaki, the Anunnaki, the Anunnaki. Kind of like Rain Man.
Yeah.
Who was autistic in that movie with Dustin Hoffman.
Yes.
And Tom Cruise. Brilliant movie. Awesome movie. But that's what it reminded me of. And then the cameraman, his name was Ron Sharfie, and he saw what was going on also. So he goes to turn around to take pictures of these beings. And so did I at the same time. And everybody was frozen, completely frozen, like in the state of paralysis, which happens to people that get abducted. It was just like that. But somebody did manage to get a photo off and send it out on Facebook, and it was removed immediately.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not surprised.
I know. And then, and so there's this group of people around us now, and everybody's starting to spin questions at them. And this guy's name is R. Keith Andrews. He's one of the key witnesses also. He walks up, and I'm about to say, your skin is blue, but Keith beat me to it. He beat me to it. I give him credit for that. And he said, are you Pleiadian by chance? He said, I'm a shifter and I'm a healer, and we were sent here. And I'm like, just blowing your mind. And imagine there's somebody that you believe is an extraterrestrial standing right next to you. You got your cell phone in your hand. You're about to start taking pictures and just be rude and just do it without their permission. and I was totally frozen. So was Ron Sharfy, the cameraman, who was one of the key witnesses also.
Right.
Our Keith Andrews also, it was just such a total trip. And then there was this other blue being that was real tall with blonde hair parted on the side, had a hoodie on. And the one guy who was initiating the conversation with me in the first place was starting to get all loose and relaxed. And the taller one said, we need to go now. So they walk out the door. And then all of a sudden, Ron Sharfy, the cameraman, he pulls out of his paralysis and he runs outside. And I was going to do the same thing, but I was just frozen in time. I was. And he gets outside and he doesn't see anything. He was, seeing if they jumped in a station wagon and drove off or something. But he sees this massive pulse and flash of light come up off of the roof of the convention center. And then there's a whole lot more to it, but that's the crux of the story. And I'm not going to use names. I'd love to bash some people right now because they really embarrassed me and hurt my reputation. But whatever. But I will say they're all with MUFON that did it. Right. So I've got a real chip on my shoulder about that because this did happen. And me and the witnesses, another witness was Eric Mitchell and his son also. Right. Those are and Nancy Hewins, which is Audrey's mother. Right. And Debbie Hewins, which is her twin sister.
Right. It's interesting how it's so like crafts seem to be one thing. UFO sightings seem to be one thing. But when it comes to ET or extraterrestrial beings, that seems to be a whole other thing that people don't want to broach very easily. So, I mean, I believe there are many here. They're not all from the stars. And here's Kat's question to you is, what are your thoughts regarding humans that are not originally from Earth, that humans were brought here from a dying planet? Oh, okay. That's.
I think that the Earth was colonized. I think it was colonized by multiple different races and species from around the cosmos. But this is very interesting. So Sun Shi Li, who used to work with the Chinese government, he came out, and I don't know, maybe a decade ago or something, and said, if you had any idea how many human alien hybrids are walking amongst us, it would blow your mind, and it would create a global panic.
I believe it.
And then former Prime Minister Medvedev from Russia said the same thing to a reporter. And the reporter, and they have this, you can find this footage somewhere, maybe on YouTube or something. But she's sitting there. I know it's on Ancient Aliens at one time, but she's sitting there laughing about it. She just thought it was funny and just, a bunch of baloney. Right. But he said the same thing. And then the former prime minister of Japan, his wife just came straight out and said, I get abducted all the time. So this information is out there.
All nonchalantly. Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
And you can research everything I just said. Right. So are there multiple factions of ET that are here? Yes. And so a lot of the hybrids, you can cut them open anatomically and they look just like us. They have the same organs and everything else. But there's what you call the triune brain, which explains that you have the mammalian complex, the primate complex, and the reptilian complex. And a lot of our world leaders, their reptilian complex is the most powerful, dominant feature in their brain. But you cut them open and they look just like humans, just like we look like humans. You can't tell them apart. However, they vibrate at a different vibration frequency, and some of them can even shapeshift, and some of them can actually manipulate your thoughts.
So do you think they're actually shape-shifting or doing what you're saying, manipulating your thoughts, making you see what they want you to see, like by projecting?
All of the I think all the above, Michelle.
It would
So,
be hard to shapeshift, I would think.
so it was years ago, and it was after the Blue Beings, and I had written the book, and I had a dream. I had a dream, very strange dream, where Travis Walton comes to me in a dream, and he says, if you can phase or pulse your mitochondrial DNA, you can in effect shapeshift. I mean, who has dreams about mitochondrial DNA? You know,
There's dreams about Travis Walton.
I know. I was like, oh my gosh, that's unbelievable. You know,
It's like Travis. Oh my God.
I thought
Oh
it
my
was,
gosh.
I thought it was really, really cool, actually. But so get this. There's this particular ship, doesn't show up all the time, usually shows up. I can usually get it to power up. I think I figured out who it is.
Okay.
Okay, you'll never guess. But I believe it's me in another concentric multidimensional self in the quantum hologram matrix.
Okay.
So
And what makes you think that? Like, what's your theory?
well, what I do believe, and this is just one of my theories, can't prove it, but
Yeah.
I do believe that we have a God self or a soul. I think most of us can believe that.
Much like a shadow self.
Yeah, and that it's omnipotent, just like
Right.
God is. Okay. So if it's omnipotent, that means it exists in all dimensions simultaneously. So if that's true, then a part of us exists in all dimensions simultaneously. So I believe one of my higher concentric multidimensional selves,
like a bleed through,
has its own transdimensional space-time vehicle and flies around me and pulses for me. And once again, do I need to be fit for a straitjacket? Possibly. I wouldn't rule that out, but I believe that's what it is. And it doesn't always happen, to be quite honest with you. But most of the time, especially on a clear night, it almost always does.
I've seen it on occasion, in one specific spot not far from here, where I've been driving down, usually it's quiet in the evening, and I'll just look up and say, "Where are you?" And I'll see a big light go poof, poof, and I'm like, "Thank you." Doesn't happen every time I ask, but it's happened. I've seen phenomenal things in the sky, like phenomenal things, like just like a half moon almost. I was given a vision a few years ago of this with this portal behind me, not specifically about that, but I remember looking back and seeing this. It was all pastels, huge, just electrifying. And driving one night, and the person I was with, like, I don't see it. I'm like, how the hell can you miss this freaking thing? It's a giant, And then it just went, just like gone, just like that. And I'm just like, well, shit. That was pretty damn impressive, So I do believe there are just incredible things happening, but maybe not everyone is meant to see it. Because he's looking around going, I do not see this. And I'm like, you are driving right the hell into it. Except it's up here. But I mean, you are driving straight towards this thing. So
to your point, it was back in the day when I worked for Michelle, and there was another one of my competitors that was maybe a couple hundred yards away.
Right.
And so very, very often he would piggyback my group. Okay.
Right.
So we're using lasers. And the thing with the lasers, you don't point at anything, because I've made mistakes. That's for sure.
Right.
Sometimes it's easy to mistake a plane for a UFO. So when a plane is flying straight at you or straight away from you,
they don't want a laser in there.
you can't see the lights because they flash out. You see what I'm saying? So it's flying straight at you. You don't see the flashing lights until it gets right up on you. And so my rule, which I learned from Michelle, don't point at anything, point under it. And then we know to look above it. So there's a number of nights where we're out there and I got my group, and I'm always big on, did you see something? Say yes or say no. Yes. Okay. Well, we all agree. I want it to be abundantly clear. Do we all agree? We all just saw something. Yes or no? Yes. How come the group next to us didn't see anything? How come we did not see them shooting their lasers? You have to allow that to soak in, that what we saw, and they did not. Right. Now here's a whole new, avenue of questions that you can go down. But it's like, were we at a certain vibration frequency that they were not at?
Possibly.
Did they up there put us in that vibration frequency so that we could see them, but so that they could not?
Right.
You know, I mean, all these questions, more questions than answers, obviously, but you know, and I'm like, folks, you really need to let that soak in. What happened?
Right.
You know,
It's a
can we-
learning curve.
Yeah. Can we
Right.
all agree we saw something? Yes or no? Yes.
Right.
Well, how come they didn't shoot any lasers? You know,
Right.
usually they're piggybacking me, you know.
Right. So why? They didn't see anything.
So that's to your point, that you were able to see something and your friend was not able to.
Yeah, not a chance. No.
You were at that vibration frequency and that other person was not. It doesn't mean that you have a higher or more powerful vibration frequency. It's just I like to say it's different than the other person's. Right?
And I think a lot of it's like a mood ring. Because if I'm feeling hostile, my vibration is entirely different than if I'm feeling all lovable. Anyway, Foxy Joe, Reverend, can I manifest an alien sighting or an encounter?
Yes, you can. Absolutely. So this is interesting. All right. I'm not going to use names here, but I was at a UFO conference where I had 71 people in 2 nights. Now, that's a ton of people. That's for sure. I had to bring in another company. And so we're with this guy that supposedly channels these Andromedans, right? And he's going into this old English accent where he's supposedly channeling these Andromedans. But what he was doing breath work beforehand. And what people don't understand is that when you do breath work, you can hyperventilate and you can start to see things that are not there. And so I'm pretty confident that that's what he did. And he did it on purpose, because as soon as, you go through 15 minutes of breath work, you're on a different, kind of plateau.
It's like an ayahuasca moment.
I mean,
right.
you can manifest things that are not there. That's
right.
for sure.
Right.
The only way to really check yourself is to do it with multiple people. But just basic things, I'm positive that you know how to meditate. So I'm not going to tell you how to meditate, but employ some things that I talked about, ask permission to see them, make sure you're abundantly clear, love, light, and consciousness. Because, when you beam out there and you don't protect yourself, you don't know what you can bring in. That's for sure. So only of love and light, only loving and benevolent ascended masters, please. I ask permission to see you. I invite you in. And don't just do it for 5 minutes and decide if it works or not. Don't just do it for a day or a week or so. This is something I've been doing every day, basically since I was a child. And my mother groomed me to do this stuff. So we're seeing spirits or extra dimensionals or whatever we're seeing. And, Mom knew exactly what to do with me. Right.
I like Marshall's comment. I've heard that women are already at a higher level of being. I'll take that one, Marshall.
Well, and there's some scientific proof in that, actually.
Right.
That the vortexes, they're either male or female. Okay.
Right.
So the male energy, it spins and it comes down clockwise. It's more grounding.
Right.
All right. I'm not saying men are more grounded than women, but the energy is.
We're emotional creatures, so we would be a little bit.
Okay. So that makes sense. It comes down, more grounding. The female energy comes up counterclockwise, and it's more soul expansion, pineal gland activation, and creativity. And you can measure it. You can measure it with certain instrumentation. And believe it or not, everybody, the female energy is a higher vibration frequency than the male energy.
There we go.
So when I go out to the vortexes, I will take people up to this vortex tree, which I mentioned earlier.
Right.
And what the trick is to feel the tree, but don't touch it. Right. That's the whole thing. Right. Remember, I told you about the scientist, and I took him to that specific tree, and then the trifield magnetometers, bang, 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 bang. So what I try to do to test myself as a psychic, or at least I think I'm psychic, but I test myself, as you should if you think you're psychic, without using cards and without crutches. But I pick one person out of the group. Let's say I have 10 people. I'm going to start first thing in the morning trying to figure out which one of them I'm going to say is going to be able to feel the vortex energy coming out of the tree without touching the tree. And almost every time it's a woman. Right. So to your point, yes, I would have to totally agree.
Right. There we go. Thank you very much.
I mean, rarely is the
Doxy.
only person a man. That's
Right.
very rare.
No, getting back to like the breathing and everything else, I for myself, I think in experiencers who have had a pretty regular bit of contact. For me, I think, I didn't have a lot of recollection for a long time. And because paranormal and UFO, we'll talk about that, when we do the paranormal show, but they do go hand in hand. But when I was ready, it wasn't so skittish because I mean, there's something about, something coming into your room at night and it's very intrusive, right? So when I was ready to be okay, like I started seeing things were happening to me, like things were just running right over top of the car while I'm driving. Oh, it's crazy big. I'm like, was that a freaking deer? It was huge, all iridescent, like it was up higher than the stop sign. And I'm just like, we both looked at each other and he goes, "Did you see that?" I'm like, "Thank God, I thought it was just me." And I was just losing my mind. So nobody wants to be that guy and talk about it and be the first one, right? But then there were things that started like floating, like little triangle cube things over the vehicle one night. And I just finally said, and I just put it out there, just telepathically, I said, "Okay, I'm more than ready for this." And holy crud, did the floodgates open, experiences in the house, like we've had something like an energy blast just go right through the whole house, hit the neighbor's house, devastated the side of the house. And we had like the walls in our home at the time were 3 feet thick. So it shot through after it hit her house, shot through one set of windows in the dining room, shook the windows. These are from like 1875. I'm like, please don't break the windows. Please don't break the windows. And shot across the room through the other windows in the other room and shook those as well. And we just sat there looking at each other going, I have nothing. I don't know. But things like this started going. Beams of light through the house, or ET in the house. I just looked right at it one night, just kind of went, nope, and rolled over. I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. So I don't know. I think if you're really ready and you put it out there, at least if you're an experiencer or a contactee, I don't know that it would work the same. For somebody who maybe has a recollection or somebody who just has never had an experience, which is where somebody like yourself who can come in and teach people how to do it, because you have to be careful with the breathing thing. I think it's great, but it's like you say, you can almost hyperventilate or start seeing like ayahuasca,
Well, this particular individual that was doing the CE5 at this event, he went immediately from the breath work into what do you see now? And I'm like, I didn't think that was the appropriate way to do it. I think that they needed at least a 5-minute cool down period to come back into self. Because breath work can take you places, that's for sure.
Right.
And then I do what I call a galactivation.
Okay. So what's that like?
Activation with a G.
Is it like a pre-program or a reprogram?
I can galactivate, and I can't do it for everybody, but I can galactivate people so that they can see spirit, so that they can see UFOs. But it's something you got to be very, very careful with. And most people, when I explain to them that I can do it, and it scares them. And if it scares them in any way whatsoever, I won't try. Because if you're afraid, you're not confident that you're protected. You're going to bring something in that's less than love and less than light.
Right.
So my girlfriend who just moved in with me a few weeks ago, I galactivated her, and I've had to teach her how to turn it off.
Right.
Like she's seen stuff like too much, and it's starting to freak her out.
Because it's kind of like information overload at first. So sometimes you have to start off with baby steps. Right.
Yeah, and she's learning how to hone it in.
Right.
And kind of discipline her own self within her own thoughts and spirituality to just kind of tone it down. And I told her, I said, I have to turn it off sometimes because it happens all the time. It does, whether I try to or not. Then if I try to, it happens that much more vivaciously. I see more stuff. It becomes more vivid. But I can sit in a room with certain people and I can start to show them, look, can you see that? And they all very often like to sit in the corners. They love the corners of your house, like up at the ceiling in the corner. And so who is one of our most powerful guardian angels that we have? It's us in a higher dimension. So they know all about us. We don't know a whole lot about them, but we are very important to them because what we do affects them in that other concentric dimension.
So it's the whole we are you, you are us, we are one.
Yes, that plays in exactly what I'm saying.
Right.
So who's perhaps one of, if not my most powerful guardian angels? It's me. It's me in a higher dimension.
Right. It's wiggy, but I think people have difficulty in understanding that we are really powerful beings and we can do incredible things. I think we just have to put aside that fear and the doubt and stop questioning ourselves and just, like I say, jump in with both feet and enjoy the ride. It's the easiest way that I found it on many levels. I mean, I've been in the field of high strangers for 20 years and doing media for 20 years and television and all sorts of things. And I never went looking for it. It found me. And boy, have I been learning. I like to say I'm a student. I don't think, I don't really believe much in experts, but I'm a student and I'm like a sponge. Every time a guest such as yourself comes on, I just sit there and absorb because it's all about learning, right? That's part of your evolution.
It is. So it was sometime last year, and I'm taking my group up to the Vortex tree, and I pick out a lady, and I was right. I've only been wrong twice in 6 years.
Right.
And the 2 times I was wrong, and it was ladies. They're like, I'm so spiritual. I see spirit. I feel energy. I'm a total empath.
Right.
And they couldn't feel the tree. But this particular lady, she does like psychic workshops around the country. So now all of a sudden I'm the student on my own tour. And we're up at the Vortex tree. And she's like, well, I'm saying, put your hand in this area. And she's like, well, yeah, but this is where you want to start. This is the heart of the tree. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? And I've never really put my hand in that spot before. And she was totally right.
Maybe it moves around.
And in my mind, she was totally right. So I start at the heart of the tree and then move them over to this branch that's completely twisted like a piece of licorice or a pretzel.
Right.
And between the 2 spots, they feel something almost always. And a good way to explain it is like, remember the old tube TVs?
Right. Yes.
Coming off of them without touching them. That's very often what people feel. But it was the other day, and I had a small group, and I only had 2 people. And when I have 2 people, I'm like, I don't know if I want to bring it up. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to pick the guy's wife. And I'm like, are you empathic? And she's like, well, kind of. I'm like, here, come with me. I'm either right or I'm wrong. So we get up to the tree. She's like, I don't really feel anything. I'm like, you don't feel anything? She's like, no, I really don't.
It's wiggy when that happens.
And then her husband, I'm like, hey, hubby, is she okay? He's like, she does that when she feels something. So it's funny. She didn't physically feel anything with her hands, but I'm watching her do this, and I'm like,
because it's pulling at the core. I've seen people do that near near vortexes or ley lines, and they stand up straight and they start bending like this, and they don't realize that they're on a side. They're like, I don't feel anything, and I look at them and I go like this, and then they look down and realize they're getting closer to the ground. It's the most incredible thing I've ever seen when they're like, literally, like they're not even bent over. It's like they're straight and they're completely being pulled. It's fantastic, like energy pulling energy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So same kind of thing, but I've seen it a couple times, but the lady just kind of wobbling.
That's weird.
And she's like trying to get her bearing straight, and she's like, I just completely lost my entire equilibrium right there.
Oh, right.
She's like, are you okay? She's like, yeah, I'm fine. Just what just happened to me?
So that's an
I'm like,
energy thing.
And I try to explain to people that the vortex energy affects different people differently, and that's
Yeah.
the way that it affected you. It's not a negative thing. It's just the way that you reacted to it. And I'm like, I think you should think of it as something incredibly positive.
Right.
And she did.
Right.
She did.
I'm going to show a couple of photos as we are slowly hitting the top of the hour, and I wanted to share them because you sent them. So here's one. Can you? There.
Okay, so this is really trippy. So I have the recording, and I tried to send this to you, but it would not send.
Oh.
And we see a ship, and we see it power up.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ship vanishes, but then we see this spectrum of color. And I don't exactly know how to explain that. Now, your skeptic will say it has something to do with the camera. So what I'm doing is I'm literally putting my iPhone camera up to the eyepiece on my night vision goggles.
Right.
And that's how I get these recordings. Now, if you want to spend 10 grand, which I don't have an extra, well, I do, but I mean, I don't want to spend 10 grand on the full kit.
Right.
With the camera, because I can get these videos just like this. But anyway, the ship powering up turned into that and then vanished. And so I was like, I can't send the video. It's not allowing me to send the video. So I'll just send a still photo of it.
It's still pretty cool, nonetheless.
Yeah, it's totally
I love it. Next one is this one right here. Bear with me, and I will put this one up as well. Bam. Bam, bam. Gosh, okay. There we go.
Okay, so I'll be very honest. This is not my photo. A friend of mine sent that to me, and he's like, "Dude, it looks like a face. It looks like the face of perhaps even a gray alien or something." But he saw it in the sky, and if you live in Sedona long enough and you believe, you'll see stuff like this. You absolutely will. A couple years ago, we saw a massive UFO fly right down the main street in town. Everybody saw it.
Wow.
Everybody took pictures of it. It was massive. It was changing color. It was changing shape. It wanted to be seen. It wanted to be photographed. It was up there for over 20 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of thing, it happens here. It absolutely does. And I think that the veil, the veil is only something that you create. So if you've created a veil, well, guess what? There's a veil. It blinds you. So why create a veil? Allow yourself to be able to look into these other dimensions. Just protect yourself before you do anything like that. One thing I did want to play for you.
Okay.
I guess we have 10 minutes or something, but I wanted to play.
Yeah, go ahead.
Anyway, so I'm out by Bradshaw Ranch, our Area 51. So Beyond Skinwalker, season 1, episode 1. Season 1, episode 5 is part 2. It talks about the wormhole or the portal, the Stargate that we have. And Andy Bustamante, the CIA operative that was heading up the investigation at Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, that same team of scientists came down here and they found the tunnel system where the bases supposedly are between here and Phoenix, and they're called DUMBs, deep underground military bases. And they found it through ground penetrating radar. And it goes right through the portal at Bradshaw Ranch. And underneath the portal, they found high concentrations of radon. And where there is radon, there is uranium. And coming out of this portal, or whatever it is a 1.6 gigahertz signal, which is used exclusively by Black Ops military for interstellar communications. And this tunnel system went right under that. So I'm halfway close to this area. We're doing UFO, and we see this massive ship fly overhead, and something jumps in over the audio. So you heard on the first video that I played for you out of Albuquerque, you can hear me narrating as I'm just normal human reaction of So you hear me talking, and then it morphs into something else. Something jumped in over the recording, and Tom Dongo, who helped make Bradshaw Ranch famous back in the 1990s, he's the one I gave this recording to, and he gave it to Stanford University I'm going to allege that he did because I wasn't there, but he did, and he said they would never get back with him. But anyway,
Okay.
this is it.
Okay.
Hear the tachyon field. You can bend space-time with that. This goes on for some time, so let me fast forward it to the end, and you can hear it morph back into real time. Okay.
Wow.
And he's checking us out too. So take step backwards. So we're doing UFO, see a massive mothership or whatever it is fly over our heads, and you hear me say the propulsion field is massive, and it flies over our heads, and then none of us heard any of that recording I just played for you.
Right.
People could hear me talking, but they couldn't hear anything else. And then something jumped in over the recording, and you could hear the tachyon field though. So if you know how to manipulate sound, you can manipulate time also.
Wow.
And so that's what I believe, that they did something to that effect. But it took me 2 days to even realize I got that audio recording, because
Right.
none of us heard anything. None of us. And you heard at the end, it sounded kind of confrontational. You could clearly hear two beings or whatever they were. And to me, one was a praying mantis and one was a lyran. The Lyrans are these lion beings that come from Sirius, and they're like these guardian protectors. They're very loving and benevolent, but they are guardian protectors. Like they'll chew your head off if you try to hurt somebody.
It's interesting with it because it almost had that rapture tone to it. I was just like,
totally. It sounded like Predator, kind of.
A little bit, yes, yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah, totally interesting. And I play this at all my presentations. I play it as much as possible.
Right. Right.
And anyway, but that should have gone viral too. Had a lot of leave nameless. Now I don't even want to explain it, but that requires a lot more attention than it has gotten. That's for sure.
No, absolutely. I am just really thrilled that you came on and shared your evening with us, and big thank you to your significant other for sharing you with us all. I'm looking forward to the next show, and of course, after this show, I'm thinking we might be able to squeak in a Mount Shasta or get into even more about your Yahweh book, which is also really fascinating with that whole respect and theory. But our listeners love it. We've had people have their own versions of it, and you've got your lovers and your haters. It's kind of it kind of goes two ways. I had a phenomenal guest on the show last week, and we got talking about hybrids and Christianity and so on. And I said, well, you've got this incredible, creator who is all of this and such. And you've got Mother Mary, which might make Jesus be a hybrid. And he sort of looked at me and paused and went, yes. I was like, okay. I say it with all love, but it is a really fine blend of things. So, but this is a part of the show where please promote yourself. I'm going to put this up because this is something that you have coming up very soon. Okay. And go.
Okay, to be honest with you, that's from last year.
Okay.
That's from last year. But I'm gonna juice my good friend Suzanne Ross. She's in the upper right hand corner. So this is her event, not mine. But
Okay.
I'm the UFO guy, and George Nuri from Coast to Coast AM and Ancient Aliens.
Right.
He was there. He was there. William Henry, who was a permanent fixture on Ancient Aliens. He was the keynote speaker. Maureen
Brad Olson. Yeah.
Brad Olson. He's one of my best
Been on the
friends.
He's been on the show a few times. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he can tell you some stories about us going out to Area 51 and all.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Petroglyphs, pictographs, UFOs.
Right.
He stays at my house when he comes here.
Right. Well, he probably did a radio show with us while he was at your house one time, actually.
He probably did. He's constantly on
Yeah.
podcasts, videos, all of the above.
Yeah,
and
he's a lot of fun.
CC Publishing, he's written 11 books and won 5 awards.
Oh, absolutely. He's covered all
Yeah, I
three
went
of
to
his books.
Antarctica. Yeah, and he's in Laos. I think he's in Laos right now. So he's a world traveler also.
He is.
Yeah. And then Desiree and JJ Hertak, they were at that conference last year. Maureen St. Germain, she teaches remote viewing around the world. And she lives about 25 miles from my house. And whenever she does her remote viewing retreats, I'm the UFO guy for her too. But anyway, and you see Billy Carson at the bottom, James Von Craw. Anyway, but yeah, Suzanne Ross, she is the biggest conference organizer in Sedona, period. And been a good friend of mine. Let me tell you real quick before we go how I met her. So she was doing research on Bible aliens, and her friend came in from out of town and she wanted to get a psychic reading. So they go to this place called Crystal Magic, and her friend wanted a psychic reading. So she's like, I'm just going to buy a book and go sit in the car because you're going to be there for an hour. So she walks to the book section, and my book, Yahweh, the Biblical God is an Alien, pops out by her foot. And she wasn't going to bend down and crawl around on the floor looking for a book at the bottom shelf. It popped out. She pulls it out, and it fit right into all her research. And this was before I moved to Sedona. And she contacts me and says, hey, I found your book, and this plays into all my research I've been doing recently. I want to interview you. And that's how I met her. So I call Crystal Magic and I say, my name is Reverend John Polk. A friend of mine purchased my book through your store. How did you find out about me? And the lady who picked up the phone said, I've never heard of you. And the title of your book, I would have definitely remembered. I have no idea who you are. And that book was never sold through this store. I'm the one who buys the books. I'm the one who sells the books.
And
it's all on the computer. You're not in the computer. I have no idea who you are.
That's interesting.
So I call Suzanne, and I'm like, Suzanne, what? I know you're not lying. What do you think happened? She's like, Sedona. It's Sedona. Things like that happen here, and we were meant to know each other and work with each other. And so
the universe always finds a way, or the powers that be always find a way. So I love that. I really do. So what do you have coming up? More tours? Maybe plug your website. Anything else you want us to know?
Okay, johnpolktours.com. And most people will not do this. I give out my phone number. I prefer phone calls. You can go on my website. You can find my email, which is jpolktours@gmail.com. Communicate with me any way that you want. But my phone number is 407-924-8857. It's a Florida number, so don't let that throw you off. And call me or text me if you want. Even if you're an experiencer and you just want to talk to somebody, I like to talk to experiencers. They need somebody to talk to. They need somebody who understands what's happened to them. That's why my girlfriend and I fell in love with each other so quickly, is because nobody believed her, especially her family.
What'd you go do now? I know. I love it. And I'm looking forward to our next talk, which is going to be March the 6th.
And I look forward to it. I have it in my calendar.
Excellent.
And yeah, we'll have another, soul expanding, mind teetering escapade across the cosmos.
And that's what I love about it. So thank you. And I will be in touch and I will get you links and so on. And we'll go from there.
All right. Hey, like we had our phone conversation a couple months ago.
Yeah.
I knew you knew how to interview me, because some, I love all the hosts out there, but some people, they're just not sure what questions to ask me. But per our conversation a couple months ago, I'm like, Michelle knows exactly how to interview me. She'll ask all the right questions and it'll be fun. We're just gonna have a conversation
and that's all it is. That's
Yeah.
all it is. It's just round table, have a few laughs. Everything is just right off the cuff. And
great.
that's what I love about it. I don't want something that's so traditional that everybody asks the same thing. I just want it to be like we're just having, a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, whatever the case may be, and just jamming ideas around.
Yeah,
So,
it was great. You and your crew do a very professional job, and
thank you.
privileged to be on your show, and look forward to March 6th.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it as well. So have yourself a terrific week and weekend. And I'll be in touch probably tonight or tomorrow with all the links and such as they get put up.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Good night now. Well, guys, we have come to the end of another fantastic segment. That was quite an eye-opener, as I knew it would be. And love the video. Pictures were awesome. But big thank you to John Polk for coming on to the show. It's always nice to spend time with people who have incredible stories to tell and love to share their experiences with the rest of us. Also, big thank you to Folgers Coffee for sponsoring tonight's show. Big thank you to Justin Snicker and Steve McGinnis. We appreciate you so very much. Tomorrow night, we are going to have our very first open night of 2024. So open mic night, guys. So anything goes conversation. We hang out and we just have a good time, and hopefully Amelia will be here to join me as well. Never the same without her. So until then, enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a great day tomorrow, and we shall see you tomorrow evening. Thank you and good night.